Hey guys, what is up? This is Matthew Davis, me once again. Welcome back to the movie review, aka After I Saw. I hope you guys are having a great Christmas, or I hope you guys had a great Christmas, depending on when I have this video uploaded. But this time I'm going to be reviewing Anaconda. This is not a reboot of the original 1997 film with Jennifer Lopez, Ice Cube, Owen Wilson, you know, the cult classic film that came out all the way back then. And of course, we're living in an era where it's all about reboots and remakes and stuff like that. But this movie does things a little differently. Instead of this, you know, being a film involving Anaconda, I mean, granted, there's an Anaconda in this movie. Instead, it involves Paul Rudd and Jack Black as they want to do a reboot of Anaconda together. And doing so, they go out into the wilderness. However, after they accidentally get their snake killed, they have to go and find another one. And when they do, it just so happens that it's an actual anaconda, more furious than the one that they were using. Because, honestly, the one that they were using was not threatening at all. But, you know, when you're making a movie, that's probably for the best. In fact, it is, because if you were using like a real vicious snake, it would turn into an absolute hellhole. Now, I never found the original Anaconda film to be amazing, but nobody really does. It's just a simple B-movie about an anaconda, which I actually haven't rewatched the film in quite some time, and I do have the movie on Blu-ray, but it's just because I didn't really find it, you know, all that great. I mean, it can be watched just purely for entertainment, but it's not scary. It's honestly, none of the actors are really all that good, in my opinion. But hey, if there's one thing I think we can all agree with, it was still a better film Ice Cube was in than what he did recently. So I will say that. But when the trailer dropped, I was all like, yeah, this could end up being a disaster. But on the other hand, the fact that, you know, it's not really a reboot, as it's more of a film that's trying to reboot Anaconda rather than the movie itself being a reboot of Anaconda, as it was stated itself, okay? This is a film that is simply just, you know, being about making a reboot of Anaconda. Because of that, I actually did have a little bit more interest in this movie, that this movie could actually surprise me and actually being like a commentary on how we're always seeing reboots and stuff and how most things don't seem to be original, and when there are things that are original that do come out, most people don't end up seeing them unless it's Sinners or Weapons, so thankfully it's not all the time. However, this movie falls into the category of it being exactly what I did not want it to be. And that was a generic comedy film, because that's mostly what it was. Because, hey, I like Jack Black. I wasn't a fan of the Minecraft movie, and I'm not a fan of this, but hey, nonetheless, the guy seems cool in real life. He looks like a cool guy in real life. If he asked me to hang out, I will be all on board on doing so. It just comes to, you know, the modern roles that he is being put into. The fact is, when you look at him, you don't really call him what his character is. You just call him Jack Black. And as for Paul Rudd, it's clear that these two are having a fun time making the movie, and I don't mean like the movie they're making in the movie, but the actual movie itself. It's clear they're having a fun time, and it's clear they are giving it their all to be as funny as possible. It's just the jokes never really landed for me. In fact, towards the end, there are some jokes that really went too overboard that kind of just got me completely lost. And some of the jokes, I didn't even feel needed to be in there. And well, sure, the movie's an hour and a half long, which is a very generous runtime, but the movie is very poorly paced. Like, I didn't really expect this to be about, you know, fighting off against an anaconda, because it really isn't about that, because the anaconda stuff barely happens in this movie. All that really happens is they're making their film, which again, I was invested in what they could do to actually poke fun at that, and they only have like 2 parts of the movie that actually do kind of make fun of that. But as for the actual Anaconda stuff, of course the Anaconda is going to be CG. A lot of the time it doesn't really feel all that convincing, but then again, this is the modern era. CG just barely wants to work anymore. But I guess what really hurts the most is that, you know, there was potential of having, you know, a fun commentary on reboots and remakes and stuff like that. Well, ultimately, it just feels like, you know, it's comedy relying too heavily on, you know, typical cliche comedy stuff, and one that involves making a reboot. That's where it falls under in the end, just another generic comedy while having a spin on the thing that you're trying to, replicate. Or not trying to replicate, just do your own reimagining of. And hey, there have been some really good reimaginings to happen, and some really good reboot / legacy sequels, and that, in fact, that's mostly what they're trying to do in this movie, is to make more of a semi-sequel to Anaconda, which, again, there is a good idea in this movie, okay? There is one that I feel like could have paid off a lot more had they gotten better writers for both Jack Black and Paul Rudd, and had they cut out some of the grotesque humor that they added in, because to me, it just added absolutely nothing. But I will say, in terms of the funniest part, it's just before the end credits, which was the only time where I really got a chuckle. And I'm not really going to get too further in spoilers. That's just, well, I might as well just wrap things up. In the end, guys, Anaconda, yeah, it just wasn't for me. Despite the fact that I never really was a fan of the original Anaconda, I would much rather watch that than this, even though both movies I kind of think are, it just depends what you're in for. If you're in for a reimagining while also having elements of tackling, the reboot genre that we're constantly getting on nowadays, you're not really going to get much of a smart take on it, as you are rather than just having, that combined with humor that just feels very lackluster. Again, I thought the pacing was poor. There were some times where, the hour and 35-minute runtime felt way longer than it needed to be. In fact, I thought Avatar felt a lot shorter than this, so that's saying something there. This isn't like the worst comedy / I would say reboot, but again, it's not a reboot like they're saying that, it's not a reboot. There was just a lot of wasted potential of actually being a very smart comedy, and ultimately just feeling like another Jack Black comedy, with a buddy. That just ultimately did not work for me in the end. I can definitely say this, my Anaconda don't want none unless you got fun, and this movie just didn't have it. On the bright side, the next day, I will be seeing Marty Supreme, and that's the last movie I'm going to see before doing my best of the year list. Unless no other choice comes out sooner, then yeah, that will be it as well, because I feel like when it comes to some of the best movies that come out, it's usually during the end of the year, in terms of Oscar bait, but hopefully Marty Supreme will be on the list. I hope it will anyway. I'm really looking forward to that. But anyways, have a great Christmas, you guys, or hope you had a great Christmas, depending on, well, I already said in the beginning of the video, but yeah, I got so many videos coming up, like I mentioned before, the best movies list, as well as the best horror movies list, as well as the yearly skit compilation, as well as the monthly vlog, and of course, the Christmas aftermath video of what I got for Christmas. So look forward to all those videos. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and maybe subscribe for more. You can also follow me on Twitter, Instagram, or maybe Blue Sky. Links are in the description, and I'll see you guys later. Word out.